Hey. I'm going to do a bit of a reading vlog. Just finished March. My second month as a booktuber. Let me tell you, I'm having a blast. It's absolutely brilliant. I'm loving it. So first of all, massive thanks for all the support. It's been amazing. February was a month of growth like I've never seen on YouTube before, and it was super encouraging and exciting. March has been the month of consolidation, figuring out, building, planning. So, big project, you might have seen. It's my Crime and Punishment read-along. It's my very first read-along, which I've now got over 60 people joined on my story graph, which is absolutely amazing. I'm reading a chapter a week, going through multiple translations and listening to the Russian and reading the Russian. So I'm doing both. How's that been going? Well, really well, I'll have to say. Started out by listening to it on Audible, walking the dog, just getting some of the Russian into my ears, because I haven't listened to Russian in a long time. Then I would read the Russian along with the Audible book, just because I discovered upon the first listen that, the words are not sinking in, I'm not recognising them quite as readily as I once might have. So, in case you don't know, I was a Russian translator for a long time, but I've been away not touching Russian for over 10 years. In fact, 15 years probably. So it's very, very rusty. It's a big challenge, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I'm going through 7 translations, reading the Russian, and I'm following along with Benjamin McAvoy's lectures as well. He's got a nice book club called the Hardcore Literature Book Club, which I discovered through BookTube, and I'm thoroughly enjoying his lectures as well. So it's a deep, year-long project, and I just need to be kind to myself and remember that I'm doing it for fun. So if it gets overwhelming, I could simply just read one translation, one chapter a week, and listen to the Russian. And that's enough. My Russian will improve. I don't need to be worrying about understanding every single word. So that's really the big thing that's going on. What else is going on? Well, speaking of book clubs, I joined the Plant-Based Brides book club when I started. In fact, that was kind of what led me into starting my BookTube channel myself. I read a book about attention deficit disorder, and I discovered Plant-Based Bride through that because she'd done a review on Goodreads which linked over to her review on her channel, and I was like, haha, BookTube, yeah. So as part of that, we read Our Share of Night, which I've already reviewed here on the channel. This is a translation from Spanish, and that was the theme of the March read for Plant-Based Brides Book Club. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a horror novel set in Argentina, covers a span of years. I don't need to go into it very much because I've already done the video, so you can go and watch that if you want to learn more about this amazing book. But we had the Zoom call on Saturday, just past. At the time of recording this is Monday, so we had the call, a few of us showed up, and we talked for 2.5 hours about Our Share of Night, and it was a very, very enjoyable call, despite the fact that we ended up going on till midnight in the UK. So, yeah, I was tired, but it was totally worth it. And then I lost an hour of sleep because of clocks changing. So, yeah, Sunday was actually a very good day. And do you know why? This is why. And because the sun shone. And I read most of the day. I picked this up because I'd been listening to a podcast called Kingslingers, which is a slow deep dive of this series of books. And you'll notice, if you're a long time viewer of the channel, which basically means 2 months, because that's how old my channel is, that my very first video on the channel was a book haul where I bought the entire series of The Dark Tower from a used online bookstore, and I've got them all on the shelf behind me. And I wasn't sure when I would get to them because, you know, like all of us, our TBRs and book reading schedules are pretty full. But I decided since yesterday was such a beautiful day, I was just going to take it off the shelf and see how I got on with it. And when I went to bed last night, I had like 40 pages to go. I just sat and read it all day. What a ride. I'm really keen to crack on with these. I've listened to them all on Audible. I've read The Gunslinger. This is the third time, I believe. The rest of them I've only listened to once. So I'm really enjoying the paperback experience, the physical book experience. Reading slowly, is part of my attention deficit disorder, is that my mind wanders and I find myself, particularly with audiobooks, missing big chunks, and I want to slow down. And so when I find that happening, I will go back and reread pages that I've already read. And so that's what I did yesterday with this. Sat outside in the sunshine, a beautiful Easter Sunday, enjoyed the sunshine and enjoyed the book thoroughly. And I finished it this morning when I got up, just read the last 40 pages. I don't know when I'll read the next one. No, I don't know. Maybe soon. What else in March? Well, my son goes to school in a different town and he boards through the week, comes home at weekends. And while I take him up in the van sometimes, and on so doing we went to visit Bookshop, Waterstones, in the town where his school is. And I bought this. Yeah, Snow Crash. He's a big fan of Ready Player One. And I thought, I read this in 2008. I thought it might be good for us to listen to in the car. And I thought he would enjoy it. So we listened to it in the car for an hour. I said, how are you liking it? He said, it's all right. I said, do you want to carry on with it? He said, no. So we didn't. Well, he didn't. I did. I had the audiobook, listened to it probably about halfway through, and then there was some sections in it where we get an info dump, basically. It's all about digital... it's about a virus, really. That's what it's about. It's about hacking the brainstem. And it has lots of linguistic deep dives into the history of language, into glossolalia, speaking in tongues, into Sumeria, ancient clay tablets. And it just absolutely fascinated me. So because it has some sections where the main character goes into the metaverse, so virtual reality world, and he's able to get information from a digital assistant called the librarian, and he gives him information all about the history of language, etc., because the protagonist, whose name is Hero Protagonist, is a hacker, and he wants to understand what's going on with this virus, which is called Snow Crash, and how it's rendered one of his best friends and erstwhile work colleagues a vegetable, basically. So he wants to understand how that happened and what to do about it and how to stop it from basically destroying the world. So he gets these long info dumps from the librarian, which is why I've got these tabs. So these are the sections that made me think, well, I should really read that in physical format and slow down and do some underlining and take some notes. It refers to some Bible quotations as well, so I had the Bible handy because I'm reading Crime and Punishment. And so I was able to look up the Bible quotations where it discusses this idea of speaking in tongues and it was just absolutely fascinating. A 5-star read. Absolutely enjoyed it. And the other big thing, after talking about Kingslingers and the Dark Tower, I thought I would do a reread of Lord Fowl's Bane and the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant by Stephen Donaldson, and do my own deep dive as a podcast. So I've hooked up with an old friend, my pal Barge, who I was at university with back in the early mid-90s, and we have started a podcast called The Unbelievers, a Thomas Covenant podcast. So far we have covered 40% of the book, so we're now at chapter 12, and it's going great. I'm really enjoying it. I'm enjoying, first and foremost, discussing my favourite fantasy series with an old friend. It's just such a treat. But I'm also enjoying making the content as well, and yeah, it's a passion project, as all of this is. It's all a passion project. Another read for March was A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess, which I read as part of Mike's book reviews. His Discord channel has a classics section, and we read a classic every month. The book for March was A Clockwork Orange. This was my second read of this book. I first read it back in, I think it was 94, 95, when I was a student at St Andrews studying Russian. So if any of you have read this, you'll know that they use their own language. The characters in the book use a language called Nadsat, which is derived from Russian. Nadsat being the suffix for the teens, so 11, 12, 13, it's 11, 12, 13. So Nadsat is the suffix. And the language is, I suppose if you don't know Russian, it would be very challenging to understand what's happening in a lot of this. Like, for example, they use the word говорить, which is Russian for speak, the verb to speak, but they use it as if it were an English word. So he was говоритing, or he was peating, which comes from the verb peat, to drink. So it was fascinating the way that Anthony Burgess used the Russian language in this dystopian, weird, teenage crime, violence, political, sort of ideological short novel. It's absolutely fascinating. It's written in 1962, and I mean, I don't know what the politics were at the time, but it was fascinating just to read about the idea that the moral question, is it better to force someone to be good than to allow them to choose not to be good? And the author's unequivocal answer is no. Free choice is better than enforced violence. So, very, very enjoyable read. I'm really glad that I got a chance to read this with the book club, because otherwise I wouldn't have picked it up again. So, highly recommend it. Well, I'm enjoying being a booktuber immensely. I've got so much out of it just in the short time that I've been doing it. I'm enjoying the Hardcore Literature podcast. I'm enjoying watching other BookTube channels. I'm getting a lot out of that. And I'm enjoying just going into my books more deeply. And that was what the whole point of this was. What are the downsides? A feeling of overwhelm, I think. But then I just remind myself that these deadlines that I'm setting on myself, they're all self-inflicted, flexible, not set on clay tablets like the ancient Sumerian Nam Shava Enki. And so, yeah, I can move forward with it, reminding myself that it's just a hobby, a thing that I love to do. And I'm making friends doing it, and I'm having fun. So that's my reading vlog for March. April's going to be more Crime and Punishment. There's another book for Plant-Based Brides Book Club, which I've reserved from the library. The book club reading for Plant-Based Bride in April is Jesmyn Ward, Let Us Descend. So I've reserved that from the library. And what else for April? Will I maybe sneak in The Drawing of the Three by Stephen King? Will I read the second of the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb? Who knows? Who knows? I would like to read at least one of them. So that's me. We'll leave it there. That's my reading vlog for March. How's your March been? I suppose there'll be loads of videos coming out on a lot of the channels that I watch, so I'll watch as many of them as I can, and I look forward to hearing how your month has gone and what you're planning for April. So this is Cams. Thanks for watching. See you in my next one. Bye.